Hi there, I'm Bryan Habana, and you're watching Rugby Wrap Up.
Oh. Coming up next on Rugby Wrap Up, Matt McCarthy and Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News talk Major League Rugby. Rugby Wrap Up brought to you in part by The Balanced Palate, nutrition for peak performance, and the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street, the world's best rugby pub. Hey everybody, welcome back to Rugby Wrap Up. Matt McCarthy at the Fantasy Sports Network Studio 34 in Midtown Manhattan, talking rugby, talking Major League Rugby. And if you're talking Major League Rugby, you got to be talking to a man from Halifax, Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News and Ray's Rugby. Bryan, welcome.
It's great to be back, Matt. Here to gloat for my perfect predictions from last week.
All right. Canadians aren't supposed to be lacking humility, my friend. You came right out of the gate with that. But you are like the Arrows in that you are now within a bonus point win of getting back in the pick pool.
That's right. It's been a rough season, but just scraping it up right now at the business end of the season. So I'm feeling a little bit better about myself. And, you got to stand up when the going is good.
All right. So let's get started looking back at the matches. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of Toronto's resounding victory over the Seattle Seawolves, we got to salute Ray Barkwell and the Arrows for saluting Ray Barkwell, who retired. They gave him a one-day contract, and then they won. But Toronto is part of Canada. Canada's huge part of the NHL. There's a lot of superstition that goes on with with Canadians and Americans in sports across the board. You think now that Toronto has to give him a one-day contract for every match until they lose, like a hockey beard?
Yeah, that might be after they responded during the game. Yeah, classy move by them. Ray is an important part of Canadian rugby for a long time, and he's kind of a local guy. He's from Niagara, actually, so not too far away, and he played with the Ontario side for many years. And I know he was actually in talks with the Arrows about playing for them until it was confirmed that he had to retire from that injury. So classy move from them. Great to see. Good reception for him, and a great occasion. Hey, they got the win for him. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm just curious how many toonies were involved in that one-day contract. Back to Ray. I think he got his first Canadian cap at 32 years old.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, oh yeah, he was a late bloomer. I mean, he would have been the oldest player at the World Cup if he had made it. All credit to him. A hardworking guy. A good old Canadian. There's probably a few maple glazed donuts in there for him from the Arrows in that contract.
Tim Hortons plug there from my friend. All right, so let's get to it. Since we're already there, let's talk about Seattle going into Toronto and getting spanked.
Yeah, I mean, what do you say is the best performance of the season from the Arrows? Kind of a slow first half. I think this weekend the overall theme what we saw was we're almost in playoff mode. The team is really tentative. You can feel the tension out there, and you can certainly feel that in the first half. The Arrows. They were going straight for the try. They turned down some points early on. They finally got some points. A penalty goal from Malcolm, and then Mike Shepard with the try just before halftime. A big momentum boost there, and they did it with a man down, Leandro Olivas, the Uruguayan winger, in the sin bin. So in the second half. They got a quick one. Leivas made up for it. He got a try after a Seppi de Trois line break in the second half. And then Dan Moor, the captain, with just an amazing solo effort, length of the field try, spectacular, that really broke Seattle's. And what can you say? I mean, the defending champions soundly beaten by Toronto.
Yeah, it was a statement win. And Dan Moore made a statement by running right around what seemed to be a surprise Matt Turner, because maybe he didn't anticipate Moore having the wheels that he had, but he just jetted down that sideline into the try zone. And then he had the throw the ball up in the air and shoot the arrow reenactment, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the first time we've seen that one, but hopefully we'll see that a few more times. I got to say I like that. So yeah, I certainly enjoyed this one, and tough for Seattle, but hey, they're still in the playoff hunt, so don't give up on them yet. Just a tough road trip for them.
I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just subliminal when I'm thinking Canada and I'm thinking hockey, but all I can think of when Dan Moore was doing that was Ty Domi riding his stick as like a broom and I like a witch. And I don't know why those two images came into my head. Ty Domi, of course, NHL star and tough guy. And a fan favorite, but it's cool to even have that kind of association because it means that it's a professional sport.
I guess Dan Moore's just about the polar opposite of Ty Domi, so that's an interesting comparison.
Yeah, and he's a Calgary fan, Dan Moore, so we won't bring that up. Okay, so yeah, that was a big win, a resounding win, and now it tightens things up. But you also had some lopsided wins and maybe some less important wins. You had what was it, Austin Elite going down to the Utah Warriors.
Yeah, 35-19, I think was the
19.
final. Yeah, I think we both predicted this last week. I thought O'Malley and Josh Reeves, the two playmakers in the back line, really controlled the game for Utah. And then those guys out wide, I mean, what do? They just got too much firepower. Austin actually had a short lead in the first half. They scored 2 quick tries there right around the 20-minute mark, but then they just didn't have anything. They just couldn't live with them after that. And Utah, hey, I think we got to mention making a splash off the field as well, picking up Adam Thompson, the All Blacks forward, the former 2011 World Cup forward for the All Blacks, and Vatimo Ravuvu, who's a key playmaker for the Fiji Sevens side that won the Olympic Games. So, these guys could play a spoiler role in the coming weeks.
And it would be a welcome thing to see. Actually, see these teams pick it up at the end of the season. And that kind of leads us into our second match that wasn't of a lot of consequence for the Houston SaberCats against the San Diego Legion.
And, of course, we have the news out of Houston that Justin Fitzpatrick has been relieved of his head coaching responsibilities and his director of rugby responsibilities. He'll be replaced by Paul the Cactus Emrick of USA Rugby Lore for the remainder of the year. They are actively searching out a director of rugby, but that's all the information we have right now, so we'll get into it in more depth next week. In the meantime, let's get back to the Legion versus the SaberCats.
Yeah, last week we talked about how great the Seattle NOLA game was, how exciting it was, the atmosphere, everything about that game I really loved. I really hated this game.
Yeah.
From the start to the finish, there was no intensity from Houston whatsoever. The defense was just Swiss cheese out there. Nate Augsburger from a scrum in his own half breaks and just runs the length of the field. Now, Nate's a great player. Let's give him some credit here, but that was something out of high school rugby. You can't let that happen in professional rugby. So Houston just didn't show up. I think the score flattered them a little bit. And look, San Diego's the best team in the league, but that was just I didn't enjoy watching that one. That was just a poor match to watch, really.
Yeah, was Nate the one that threw the blind flick pass that helped result in that one try?
Yeah.
That was
another one. Yeah, another line break. Nate comes in back behind or underhanded pass to Nick Boyer, scrum half to scrum half, and he goes for another try.
Yeah, that was definitely highlight reel material. And Joe Peterson, again, just the class that he adds to that position at 10 for San Diego. Perfect from the tee on conversions, 4 of them, I think. And, you got those other guys that keep doing their job and just continuing to hum along. San Diego making a statement. But you also had the Glendale Raptors and Rooney in Rugby Town, USA. And this one was, in a way, a war of attrition because both teams were hurting.
Yeah, tense. Well, we know New York certainly has been battered and bruised this season. I think nobody's been hit more in terms of injuries than Rooney. But, both teams really, it was a very tense game all game. They just, back and forth. You didn't really know what was going to happen. Harry Bennett with that late penalty goal. Really, I thought that might have been it. And then somehow Chad London finds his way through the midfield to score the dramatic try right at the end. And Will McGee showing all his experience to let the clock tick down before he sends the conversion over. You can say lots of mistakes made in that game, maybe some bad decisions here and there, but it just looked like playoff rugby to me. Like there's certainly a playoff spot on the line. At least the players were thinking there was, and that's how it went.
Well, I got to say something. I think you might be looking at this through a Major League Rugby rose-colored glasses because I thought it was anything but playoff rugby because of the mistakes that were made. And I think that there were knock-ons, there were errors in your own end with the ball. Game management was something that Tolkien talked about at halftime, and you also had players that seemed to be a little bit uncomfortable in certain scenarios. I know Foden was playing 13 again. He's more comfortable at 15, or he's looked more comfortable at 15 at least. But it's probably got to do a lot with the injuries. I know that Honko for the Raptors. He's out at least another week or two, perhaps. No Petzer, which actually opened the door for Chad London. But on the New York side of the ball, you had no Paddy Ryan, no Ross Deacon, no Jim Denise, no Chris Mattina. They're a team that's hurting, and it's going to be a factor going down the stretch if they don't get these guys. And some of the guys that are back are injured, but no excuses. Glendale came off a hiding from San Diego and won a match they had to win. Kudos to them. They are to be reckoned with yet again. Don't count them out. And that sets the tone for what we have coming ahead. You've got a nice little situation going on with Toronto starting to come alive. You know, that thing that everybody said, oh, they're going to win all their matches at home. They didn't. But now they could go 11-5.
Yeah, this is going to be the big one. They've got Seattle. That's the biggest win in their history. But you know what? It's always the next game that's the most important, right? So this weekend they got San Diego. They're flying high. They're the top team in the league now. And it's another must-win game for Toronto. And remember, the Arrows beat San Diego in San Diego. So they're not going to be intimidated at all. So, it's going to be a really close contest. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Toronto. A couple of injury situations there. Lucas Rumble, their key forward, the Canada flanker, hurt his knee, came off early in that one. Looked a little bit, he was walking around sort of okay at the end of the game, so hopefully he'll be touch and go, so we'll see if he's fit to go in that one. Jack Ney, the number 8 who missed that game, the bad ankle, again, I don't know if he'll be back this weekend or not. They're really hoping he'll be back soon, but they might be running a tight ship this weekend. We'll see.
Well, those are definitely two key ingredients, but they look like they have found their rhythm and they were clicking and firing on all cylinders, and it'll be exciting. That's one that I definitely want to watch. You've also got Utah going into Glendale. It doesn't get any easier for the Warriors, and perhaps Glendale, they can't play. They can't be complacent. They have to play this like they're using desperation. I think Takedo Simpson used the term.
I think that's the perfect word. They absolutely can't afford to take this one for granted. They can't show any complacency whatsoever. Like we just mentioned, Utah can play the spoiler role. Absolutely. They've got the firepower to do it. The last time these two teams played, it was a tie. This could go both ways. I'm leaning towards the Raptors just because that's the kind of team they are. This is going to come down to the wire. I don't think this will be a blowout by any stretch of the imagination.
And, you had Utah getting off the schneid off a winless streak over Austin, but now Austin has to go to NOLA. Oof. There's not a lot to say there. I just feel for Austin. I feel for the elite fans, and you hope that they can maybe, make this one exciting at the very least.
Yeah, you really have to be concerned now and think that maybe Austin's going to go the whole season without getting a win, which wouldn't be good. You got to think maybe that Texas Derby against Houston at the end of the month is going to be their best shot. But they're not going to get a win against NOLA. At least I'm not picking that. They've got a couple injury concerns. Doug Fraser, the Canadian center who was playing in the wing, he came off early in the game this past weekend. Chris Shade right at the end of the game, their front rower went down with a knee injury. I doubt he'll be playing this weekend. So they're going to have to patch themselves up somehow and see if they can get something. NOLA, on the other hand, they just signed Alex Maughan, the really good Life University front rower. He can play across the front row. He'll fill in for Ben Tarr, who's still out with an injury. And Vince Jobo, the big, powerful South African loose forward. He broke his arm in the first match of the season. He's getting close to return. I'm not sure he'll be back this weekend, but he's getting real close. So, you got to pick Nolan. Nolan's going to win this one hands down, and you got to feel for Austin fans.
That's right. My man, Nolan Nate Osborne, doing wonders down in New Orleans. But, there is hope for Austin elite fans, in a way, because last year, NOLA wasn't that good, and they had a massive offseason. They put things together, so they quickly turned their organization around. So the precedent has been set that a team can do this in this setup. Finally, we have Houston, the SaberCats, who are as wounded and hurt as anybody, psychologically more than anything else, coming into New York to play RUNY.
What do you say? Houston just looks lost right now. They've got some talent. You don't have guys like Threaten Palamo and Dion Mikesell on that back line. And I thought Sam Windsor had a really rough game against San Diego. He just looks burnt out. He's played every minute for that team in MLR, which is just crazy. So they just got to pull something out against New York. And I don't know what. I mean, it's going to depend on how banged up Rooney is this weekend. I still got to go with New York in this one, but
yeah,
maybe Houston could make it competitive. I don't know. I don't think so. I think New York's forwards, their control is just too much for them to handle, and I think they'll come away with this one with a comfortable win.
All right, so I agree with you on there, and I just wanted to bring up a quick positive. You brought up Threaten Palamo. Threaten has come back from what he thought was going to be a career-ending lower leg injury. I think it's the ankle area, but he is back, and he is a force, and he is a very talented player. So that was a great signing, a great pickup for Justin Fitzpatrick and co. And it might not reflect this year, but if he stays with that organization, they're going to be better off for it. So just to reiterate to review our picks, I don't think we were having any disagreement on Austin going to NOLA. I think we're both picking NOLA. I think we didn't have any disagreement on Utah going to Glendale. I think we're both picking Glendale. Utah going to Glendale. Houston going to RUNY. We're both picking RUNY. But what about San Diego at Toronto? Are you going with your hometown boys?
I got to go with Toronto after that inspiring win in Seattle. I was going to pick them anyways, but I got to go with Toronto. I think they can do it. It's a long trip for San Diego. Toronto's already beat them once, so they're not at any psychological disadvantage. I think they found their groove. And remember, important point, this is going to be the first game at Lamport Stadium, downtown Toronto. It's almost 10,000 capacity, 3 times the size of York. Much better turf surface, so the scrums will be fun. Interesting there to see Patty Ryan and co going up against Rob Brower and Morgan Mitchell. So I'm really looking forward. This is the game of the week by far. I got to go with Toronto. I'm picking them by 3.
I'm crazy. I'm going to regret this pick, I think. But I'm going with my man Lou Stanfill and the San Diego Legion in this one. They went into Starfire and were a man down and won that match. I think they are tested well beyond everybody else on the road, and they are healthy, and they are dangerous, and they're going to rise to the occasion. Mark my words, my friend.
All right, we'll see it. I like your man Lou. Him versus Mike Shepard, the two battle-hardened veterans in that second row going head-to-head. So I'm really looking forward to that game. It's going to be great.
All right, unfortunately, we are out of time, my friend, but thank you for coming on once again, Mr. Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News and Ray's Rugby. And I'm Matt McCarthy on behalf of Mr. Ray. More Rugby Wrap-Up at the Fantasy Sports Network, Studio 34 in New York City, signing off.